2 Kings chapter 6 is where you want to be. 2 Kings chapter 6, and this is lesson 56, Famine in Samaria. So we got to see the end of our last lesson with Naaman returning back to Syria to King Ben-Hadad. We also got to see the leprosy of Naaman put onto Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, and him being dismissed. But we'll see here how the Syrians are not finished. They continue to trouble the Israelites, and they come back. And let's see what happens. We don't know how long of a time period it may have been. Maybe it was just after. Remember, they had been humiliated before when they had those raiding parties go out, and they also had the different problems where they thought they were losing because God was the God of the hills and not the valleys. All of those false ideas. But they still don't seem to learn their lesson. So this is 2 Kings chapter 6, starting at verse 24. Okay. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his host and went up and besieged Samaria. That means surrounded it. So they made their way all the way to Samaria and surrounded it. Capital city. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the 4th part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. And as the king of Israel was passing upon the wall, there cried, so he's up on top of the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O king! And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the winepress? And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and passed by upon the wall. And the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. Then he said, God do so to me, more also to me, if the head of Elisha's son of Shaphat shall stand on him this day. So the Syrians come back, they surround the city so that no one can come out. Remember, the fields are outside of the city. There's some wells outside of the city. So the people have to go out to get their food. Well, when they're surrounded, they can't do that. Not only that, they can't trade. Not only that, their herds are going to be, they just have no good source of food. It's going to run out very quickly. Remember, these are not the days that we have of pre-packaged foods with all kinds of preservatives in them so that they will last for a full year, sitting in our cupboards, shelves. They obviously have no refrigeration systems like we have. So these people live daily. They need to grind the grain out of the fields to make flour for their bread each day. They need to be able to find and get down to the waters or to the seas to get the fishes so that they can take them to market. They need to be able to get to their cattle and their sheep to be able to make meals out of them. So we see that here, because they are besieged, they are unable to go in and out of the city. Not only that, the Lord sends a famine on top of that, so that if there was anything in the city that could grow, it no longer can grow either. And the people begin to starve. Exactly what the Syrians want. They want the people of Samaria to get so starving hungry they give up the city. Well, obviously the Lord is in control, and He's the one that sent this famine so that a lesson can be learned here. In fact, the famine was so great, we saw an ass's head, so the head of a donkey, sold for 80 pieces of silver. A huge amount of money for a pretty worthless part of an animal. But people are so desperate, they will eat whatever they can get. Okay? This is probably the most, you think of brains, ear, a lot of bones there. Okay? Not much meat, not nice muscle and flesh like you get off the body or legs of it. This has got virtually nothing to it. We're going to boil the bones for a little bit of flavor maybe. But there's not much that they're going to get. And then a quart of dove's dung used in the worst of circumstances, sold for fuel for 5 pieces of silver. The worst possible stuff you could possibly get for a tiny amount of it, for a huge amount of money. There is just nothing left in this city. And as King Joram is walking on top of the wall of the city, maybe to inspect the defenses, maybe to look down and see where the Syrians are out over there, while he's walking on the wall, a woman calls out and says, "Help me." Now the king, probably knowing what most of the people are asking for help for, he kind of asks her, or answers her in an unkind, sarcastic way. Maybe not the way a good, godly king would answer his people, which would be, "Trust in the Lord, my lady. Know that the Lord is in control of this, and all things will work to our good." No, he doesn't say that. Out of the barn floor, out of the wine press, do you expect me to go find you some food and drink? Okay. Well, what follows is her answer to him, just to show how desperate the people are. This woman worked along with another woman. And what did they do? They conspired for food to kill their sons and eat them, to boil them. Okay? What horrible thing to do. Okay? She boiled her son. Not dead. We've heard of people who have had to eat other humans to stay alive. Cannibalism. We've seen that in the history. Some of you have read about the Donner Party. But those were dead people. They didn't kill them to eat them. And that's what's going on here. These boys were living. And how would you kill your own son, you might say? Would a mother not starve herself first? But she's ungodly. She probably only cares for herself. And so she takes her own son and boils him and takes the meat then from his muscles and eats it herself and gives it to this other woman. And then the next day arrives when they need more meat, and now it's time for the second woman to boil her son, and her son is nowhere to be found. She's hid him. She's put him away somewhere so that her son lives, because the one son died and the meat that they ate was enough to probably supply them and get them through a few more days. So this woman thinks that she will be able to keep her and her son alive. Well, King Joram has no answer for it. He can't solve anything like the wisdom of Solomon would. He just tears his clothes for it to show his sadness and his utter disgust, and we would too. What disgust that someone would even do that. Okay? And King Joram here, then at the end of what we read, well, now he becomes angry with Elisha. This is Elisha's fault, and I'm going to behead him. By the end of this day, his head will not stand on his body. Probably because Elisha had told him, King Joram, do not give up this city to the king of Syria, Ben-Hadad. Do not, under any circumstances. So the king felt inclined that he was unable to do it. And so he becomes angry with Elisha. Because by now King Joram would have settled. He would have done something. He would have given in for the people of Samaria, but he hasn't. So he goes to him, verse 32, and Elisha sat in his house, and the elders sat with him. And the king sent a man from before him, but ere the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, See ye how this son of a murderer has sent to take away mine head? Look, when the messenger cometh, shut the door, and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? And while he yet talked with him, behold, the messenger came down unto him, and he said, Behold, this evil is of the Lord. What should I wait for the Lord any longer? So Elisha is in his house. King Joram sends a man, go behead Elisha. Chop off his head. The Lord reveals this to Elisha, who's sitting in his house with other wise men, with other elders. And he instructs them, he tells them exactly what's happening. King Joram has sent a messenger to come and chop off my head. When he arrives at the door, hold the door fast. Don't let him come in. Because behind him is his master, the king, coming. Because now the king realizes maybe this was a bad decision and he's trying to quickly catch up to his messenger so that he can tell him not to do it. And so these men are able to hold off this messenger at the door until the king arrives, okay, who asks this better question. Behold, what should I wait for the Lord any longer? In other words, why? He's saying, why is the Lord doing this? Why is God sending this famine? Why is our lives so miserable? And a good godly Christian, hopefully you and me, we would be able to recognize and say, this is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous and wonderful. It is a good thing because He is working it for our good. We may not understand what that good is. I may lose some relatives and family members here because of malnutrition, because no one has anything to eat, but it is still from the Lord. And I must not question the wisdom of the Lord. I must not get angry with the Lord, but I must be at peace with what the Lord has given me. That's what would have been the better answer by Joram, but he didn't. He rather showed his sinfulness and his shortness by kind of complaining, why should I trust God any longer? Look at what He's done. Maybe tells Elisha the story of the woman who boiled her son. See? Well, the Lord has prepared a way, though, and we see that in chapter 7. The Lord prepares a way here. Verse 1. Then Elisha said, Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, Tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria. Then a Lord, on whose hand the king leaned, answered the man of God and said, Behold, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? He said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not eat thereof. So, what happens here is Elisha makes a prediction. He says to King Joram and everyone around him, tomorrow at this time, the prices will return back to normal. Okay? Fine flour shall be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel as well in the gate. One of the wise men who's with the king, it looks like one who is very close to the king, because the king is even leaning on him here, laughs and scoffs at Elisha. Ha! If God were to open the heavens and pour down food from heaven, it wouldn't be enough to be able to bring the prices that low. It is impossible. Well, Elisha chastised him and said, You will see it tomorrow, but you will not eat thereof. Okay? So, this man made fun. He failed to trust in the Lord. The Lord can do anything, but not according to this man. He didn't believe. So let's see, how did God make that happen? Verse 3, And there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate, so outside of Samaria. And they said one to another, Why sit we here until we die? In other words, they too are starving. Why do they just sit around and do nothing till they die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. If we sit still here, we also die. Now therefore come and let us fall unto the host of the Syrians, and if they save us alive, we shall live, and if they kill us, we shall but die. And they rose up in the twilight to go into the camp of the Syrians, and when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. So, these 3 guys are kind of, well, let's see, if we sit here by the gate and do nothing, we're going to die. If we try to go into the city and get them to help us, well, there's a famine in the city anyway, so we're going to die there. Our third option is to go to the Syrians. Let's go to their tents and just give ourselves up to them, and maybe they'll give us a little food, enough to keep us alive. We'll be their prisoners even. But if we do nothing, we're going to die. And if we get to the Syrian camp and they kill us anyways because they don't like us, well, we were going to die all the other options anyway, so it's just a quicker death. Let's go to the Syrians then. So they begin and they head off for the camp of the Syrians. They kind of go when it's getting dark out, okay? So that they can kind of sneak in and kind of see around what's going on. Verse 6, For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight and left their tents and their horses and their asses, even the camp, as it was, and fled for their life. So what happened? Well, before these lepers arrived, before it was dark out, God caused a miracle to happen. God made sounds as though it were an approaching army. And the people of Syria think, well, somehow a spy left Samaria, he broke through our lines, And he went to the Edomites or the Ethiopians or maybe down to the Egyptians. And that messenger has told the king down there that for whatever amount of the kingdom of Israel he could have, come and help him fight against these Syrians. And so they're coming. Let us quickly get out of here, because they knew they were no match for them. So they left everything. They left their tents, they left their fires going, they left their bed, their gold, their silver, their jewelry, their water, their wine bottles, their food, everything. And they took off back for home. They fled, fearing for their lives. They've already lost numerous times, so they know what destruction looks like, and it means a big destruction for their country. So they leave. They take off, and there's no one there yet. Okay? Basically, it's a bunch of empty tents, but because it's twilight, nobody knows. They can still see fires probably flickering through the land out by those tents, thinking there must be men out there. And so these lepers sneak in, they creep up, and they find, well, let's see what they find. Verse 8, and when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink and carried thence silver and gold and raiment and went and hid it. And came again and entered into another tent and carried thence also and went and hid it. And they said one to another, we do not well, this day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. So they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told him, saying, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither the voice of a man, but horses tied and asses tied in the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. So you can imagine these men, these four men, maybe belly crawling almost in the sand, trying to get close to the tents and putting their ears up to the tent, and then noticing that no one's in the tent. Maybe they're out somewhere else by their buddies' tents. And so they quickly go into the tent. Come on. They go in, and here's some wine, here's some food, and they gather what they can, and they're shoving it in their mouths and drinking all that they can. And here's a pile of gold, and here's a pile of silver, throwing it into probably what's left in their tattered pockets and grabbing everything that they can, and quickly going out of the tent and fleeing back into the wilderness and finding some place, maybe by a tree or another location that they'll be able to remember. And they stash the gold and the silver and the food there. And they say, well, no one's noticed. There's no alarm bell sounded. We haven't seen anything. Let us go back to the neighboring tent. So they go back and they go into the next tent. Same thing, food and wine and drink. And they begin to fill themselves and gather up as much as they can in gold and silver. And they once again run out and they put it by a tree. And then they say, now, come on. Let's think through this here for a second. If we just continue to do this and hoard it all for ourselves, we're going to get in trouble. There's starving people inside the city of Samaria. Let's see if we can go help them. And so they approach the city. Now they're lepers. And it's nighttime. The doors aren't unlocked. They can't just turn the knob and go into the city. It's not like that. No, there's going to be a watchman up in the gate who's keeping the night watch. And so they probably shout out to him, called the porter, man, it's us, we be four lepers down here. We're outside the city, but we were so hungry, we were dying, so we went over to the tents of the Syrians, and we went into one tent, and we found no one there, and we ate and drank, and we found gold and silver, and their animals are there, and everything. And so we went into the next tent, and we found more food and drink, and we found more gold and silver, and more possessions. And so we went to other tents, and there's no one there. They've all fled. They're gone away. They left everything. Tell the king that there is food aplenty out here. So the porters do. They hear that word, and they go, and they tell the king. Well, what does the king do? Verses 12, starting there. And the king arose in the night and said unto his servants, so they know they can't wait. They've got to do this at night. I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry. Therefore they are gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, when they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city. And one of his servants answered and said, let some take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. Let us send and see. They took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, go and see. So what's going on here? Well, the king is awoken in the night. The message is given to them, and he begins to contemplate. He says, no. Again, King Joram shows a lack of faith and trust in God. He doesn't see his God working here. He sees the Syrians. Yes, the Syrians are hiding. They went into some hills just beyond their camps, and they're hiding back there, and they saw the lepers go in, and they're rubbing their hands, thinking surely the lepers will go tell the news, and now the people will come out of the city, and when the doors are open, they will rush in, and they'll be able to attack the city. No, I'm no fool, says King Joram. I'm not going to let that happen. So they decide to send out some men on horses. Sad thing is there's only 5 horses left in the city because all the rest have been eaten for everything else. So these are probably the king's horses. And so they send men out into the hills onto those horses to find out exactly what's going on out in the hills. Are the Syrians out there really? Are they really hiding? Or have they truly fled? Well, let's see what the report is. Verse 15, and they went after them unto Jordan, and lo, and all the way was full of garments and vessels which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians, so a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. So the messengers come back and they say, King, not only do we not find any Syrians out there anywhere, but we found a trail of them leaving. They were so scared, there were pots and pans scattered here. There was clothing, sandals. They didn't even stop and turn back and try to pick things up that they were trying to take with them. They just left it and kept going. They were so afraid for their lives. Master, O king, they're gone. They are no longer here to be found. So the king then allows some of the people to go out. Okay? He allows some of the people to go out, but then we'll see what happens to that man who spoke boldly that this was impossible. For now the Lord has made it happen. Verse 17. And the king appointed the Lord on whose hand he leaned to have the charge of the gate. So in other words, he let this man, you be in charge of the gate. You're going to set up a booth by the gate, and you're going to collect all the food and the grain and everything else, and you are going to sell it there to the people and give it to them. Well, the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of God had said, who spake when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel, shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And that Lord answered the man of God and said, Now, behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not eat thereof. So it fell out unto him. For the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died. So he tried to set something up there, but the people forgot their manners, and they stampeded. They trampled this king's man under their feet, and he died. Okay? So God's words spoken by Elisha came true, that he would not taste it. He might be there, he might see it, but he would never eat it. Okay? Now, Israel is a wicked nation in general. Their king leads them in the worship of idol gods. They don't return to the temple and celebrate the feasts and the Passovers as they should. It's a wicked nation. So why would not the Lord allow them to be captured by the Syrians? Why would the Lord not allow them to be wiped out and destroyed? Well, it's because there's still some of God's people in Israel. The Lord needs to create a way to get those people out of Israel before he utterly destroys them, because God will not destroy his people. So in other words, sometimes we talk of a cup of iniquity. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane said, Father, let this cup pass from me. A cup is something that is filled up with a liquid. And if that cup is not full, well, it won't run over. So we think of it this way. The cup of iniquity that was for the Israelites kept, every time they sinned, that cup kept getting fuller and fuller. But it's not quite all the way full yet. It still needs to get a little bit more full. And God needs to rid the nation of Israel of his people. Get them out of there. Okay? We're like that today. We live in a very ungodly, wicked, sinful world. It's our job to let our light shine before all men. It's our job to witness to the world of who God is. God desires us to do it. He commands us to do that. But yet he will preserve us. If the Lord comes in our lifetime, he will not destroy us with the whole world. He will take us to heaven with him before that happens. He promises us to do that. Or if I die before he comes, well, God promises to preserve and give me a new body, a new soul, and I will be preserved in that way. So it is the same here too with us. We live in this wicked, sinful world, but the Lord will care for us and watch over us and help us to persevere too.